Blackhawks fans, welcome into the Four Feathers podcast. We are live here, full barn tonight. Gianani alongside Ron Luce, Tony on tap, and our enforcer, Patrick Comiskey. Patrick, welcome back to the show. Good to have you on, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to see all five. I feel like it's been probably years since all four of us have been on a mic together, so this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode, we're going with, I know it's been a running segment on this show. We're going to call it Ruffle Some Feathers because nobody ruffles feathers as well as our friend in the corner here, Pat Comiskey. That's why he's our enforcer. That's why we brought him on. So we've got a loaded episode. Boys, Ron, Tony, good to see you guys. How's your weekend? How we doing?
Good to see you gentlemen too. As my little banner title says here, I'm still riding Friday's high because I think I haven't had that kind of high after a Blackhawks game in maybe a few years now. But gentlemen, I'm doing well. Weekend was good. Holiday was good, but we're back in action. We're back to work, and it's good to be back with you boys on a Monday night here talking some Blackhawks hockey.
Just like Ron, I'm also riding Friday's high. Spent a considerable amount of time at the UC this weekend, boys. It was mixed results, but man, Friday was something, Ron. It was absolutely something. Good to be back with all of you. And welcome back to the show, Pat.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All righty. Yeah, we'll get into all of that action that they were talking about. We've got some other issues going on, too. Some notable absences that we'll discuss. Sure, it's been flying around in Blackhawk circles, but we'll give our takes through all of that stuff. Take a look at the injury situation, results of the past few games, and look ahead to what's on tap next. And I don't think we're going to have an individual Ruffle Some Feathers segment tonight, just because Comiskey's here and he'll be ruffling them throughout. So, boys, looking forward to getting started here. Before we do, make sure you go to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Join the live stream by going over to OnTap Sportsnet on YouTube and Facebook. Like, subscribe there, drop your comments in. Unfortunately, can't see them from Twitter/X. So over YouTube, OnTap Sportsnet, and Facebook, OnTap Sportsnet there as well. Gentlemen, let's dive into it. Why the hell can't the Hawks win 2 games in a row? We had a loss over the stretch here since we last talked. They just can't seem to do it, and it's been an issue here. What's going on?
I couldn't tell you, man. This team just cannot string 2 together. I don't know if it's the inexperience or I don't know what it is. It just seems like, they'll show up and they'll get a big win, like on Friday, for example, and then they'll turn around on Sunday and just not come out with any energy. And I think that's been kind of a running theme that we've seen so far this year. They just come out to start very lackluster almost every single night. There's very rarely an outing where they come out with a lot of intensity right off the first drop of the puck. So I don't know, gentlemen. Winning streaks are cool and tough, and it'd be nice to have a winning streak every once in a while.
Go ahead, Patrick. You can take it.
Yeah, no, and I seen the thing on Twitter yesterday too. It's not even a Blackhawks thing; it's a Chicago sports thing. The Bears and the Bulls haven't done it either all year. I think the last winning streak dates back to the Cubs and White Sox both doing it in September. So not great.
Honestly, amazing the Sox were able to even do it. So
yeah, I didn't expect to see them on the right side of that stat, but we'll take it. You get the makings of an inexperienced young team that doesn't have a lot of depth and pretty much on a regular basis struggles to put the puck in the net or sustain, zone time. I think you're probably going to see a lot of this, the slow starts. It sucks. But I think at least on the promising end for such a young team, they typically do seem to fight back. So we'll take that. I think when you have teams like that, generally you'll probably eventually see them run 2 off in a row, maybe if they can get favorable matchups, because at least coming into this, you've seen yourself going against Toronto. You probably weren't expecting to win both of them, but then you go and beat Toronto and then come in and, kind of throw up somewhat of a stinker against the Blues. Maybe the scoreboard looked a little worse than it was, but I think that's just the reality of where the team's at right now.
I think it's a contrast to the rollover and die Jeremy Colliton teams we saw. That was like the last time we really saw the Blackhawks completely lifeless, I think, would be in that era. So, Tony, any thoughts here on this mixed bag of results going on?
Johnny, it's the same stop and go traffic that we've been stuck in since the start of the season.
Right.
If it's not the offense that fails to put the puck in the net, it's defensive breakdowns or poor goaltending. Then those seem to just derail any sort of momentum that they're able to carry over game to game. I do like what Pat said about them fighting back in some of these games. You've also had, another good point from Pat here too. There's been a lot of these games, and Johnny, we've talked about it on the show so far this season a lot. Making predictions for this team is super hard because they'll play up to an opponent and play down to opponents seemingly at will throughout the season. But let's also take a look at what they've been dealing with from a lineup perspective. I mean, you've got a ton of injuries. Hall has been in and out up until this point, where now he's out indefinitely. There's been a lot of line shuffling to try and make up for that. It's just it is a mixed bag, and it's really hard to get any sort of solid momentum going with so much noise.
Yeah, right. We'll get into some of that noise, but just talking about these games here individually. Tony, how do we do on our predictions here? I think I was one off with, I said they would win the first two of this swing and then lose on Sunday. And you had a little bit of a different, or Ron, we had a little bit of a different flip script on this one. But the Toronto one, I was surprised we got that one. I'm glad I got that one. However, that stinker against Columbus, I know that was just when they had the Corey Perry news come out, and that was just with the Taylor Hall stuff being a scratch there too. But my God, what an embarrassment in Columbus on Blackout Wednesday. Patrick, I think you put it perfectly. It was nice of the Hawks to at least do it. That getting blown out on one of the biggest drinking days of the year, that definitely helped ease the pain because I needed
it.
Yeah, that was a rough one. It's I love those early starts. You get home, I get home right from work, and they're playing right away, and I barely had time to sit on the couch before the game was completely out of control. Those are the tough ones. Maybe if your plans for Blackout Wednesday were to watch the whole Hawks game, then hit the bar, maybe you changed up that game plan and we're in that bar stool by about 7:30 that night. And asking the local bartender to turn that shit off because that was absolutely that's one of the worst. That's one of the worst games I've seen in some time. And just as I watched a full season of White Sox baseball, and I'm watched the Bears all year, and that one more than anything was so real tough to watch. They looked. They didn't do a single goddamn thing good in that game, so that was a tough one.
I'll contest that and say there was one. Ron, who was it, and what is he?
He's so good. He's so good. He's the only reason that game was worth watching.
Highlight.
Yes, he was the only reason. But Pat, I will say this, my friend. You said, people in that bar stool by 7:00 on Blackout Wednesday telling the bartender to turn that shit off. I got an even better one for you. How many people watched it in toll and even made it out to the bar because they were already probably blackout drunk by the end of that game in order to ease the pain? So that was a bad one. I got to enjoy that one with Mr. John Weideman and Mr. Troy Murray, and about every 5 seconds I found myself yelling and screaming the word fuck quite a bit in the old vehicle. That was a rough game, and if I have to hear Boone Jenner's name again one more freaking time against the freaking Blackhawks in my life, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna absolutely lose it because the dude kills the Hawks. He always have, and he always will, and he's been there for too damn long. But at least we got him, because at least we got number 98, guys, because he's so good. Right. He's so good.
That's where I wanted to go with it. That was the one highlight, so I did have to contest that, Comiskey. But the highlight of the weekend was Friday, and both of yous, Tony and Ron being that, were in attendance. So let's hear it. A big 4-3 overtime win over the Maple Leafs, sweep that season series. How's the experience there?
That had to be the most rocking the United Center's been since probably Hossa night. You look at the attendance, that place was packed. Ron, we had the pleasure of running into each other before puck drop. Yes, you couldn't move on the concourse. It was a disaster, just an absolute disaster of people everywhere. Place was loud. It was fun. It was, as Ron is still riding Friday's high, it'd be impossible not to. I mean, that place was absolutely electric. I know we'll talk about the game winner and everything, but man, Dickinson, Johnny, he's one of your favorites. You love him.
Jason Dickinson, how are you now? Comiskey, how are you now? Another great reason to have you on, fellow Letterkenny enthusiast. Dude, Jason Dickinson, I think he got it. You talked about like not much going on in that Wednesday game. Well, maybe the only other highlight could have been that Dickinson late goal that got him jump started for Friday's hat trick.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to that, Johnny, he came out firing. I mean, this guy might be the hot. He was riding a hell of a streak there. 4 goals in 4 periods. You can't get much better than that unless you're potting all 3 in the same period. And they weren't like, none of them were like ugly goals either. You know what I mean? I think that was what was even more impressive. They were all either beautiful snipes or him picking a spot from in tight. Like every single one of them was a highlight goal on top of it. So that was a beautiful effort from Dickinson.
I have to ask, especially on the one that he kind of dragged into, are the veteran guys taking notes from Connor Bedard here and using his little drag shot release to like put it right into their bodies and then change the angle on the goaltender? That's what it looked like Dickinson did on that little one from that was, going from the half wall to the high slot, right?
Yeah, 100%. And on top of it too, as he kind of changed the angle, he got the goalie moving one way and he shot it back across to the other side to that, originally what would have been the short side on the play. I mean, and you know what was the coolest part, I think, about that one, Johnny? You'll appreciate this because not everybody has the 18-minute timer between periods. Half the freaking arena didn't even realize he had the hat trick because they weren't at their seats yet.
Right, because wasn't that like just like 15, 20 seconds into the third period? Yeah.
It took about 10 minutes for the hats to stop raining down because people were like running back, realizing that it happened and just hucking them from the freaking entrance to the 100 level because they wanted to get their hat out on the ice. And then of course,
one of the best parts of that though was just moments before that. We're standing over a table. We decide to play some wagers on the outcome there in the third period, and there's that Blackhawks money line. I think it was sitting like plus 500.
Sure was.
We were all over it. We were all right over it. And the first reply I got off the tweet I sent was Hawks are going to need to score early. The reply came in as the goal horn was going on.
Love that. We shared that out over on our socials at Four Feathers Pod. Make sure you follow us over there and our betting page over there too. Tag them in it at On Tap Bets as well. Give that a follow. All right, Comiskey, exciting game on Friday. Were you around able to watch it? What was your reaction when we finally get over the hump here and snap this goddamn 5-game losing streak?
Yeah, so I was actually taking the dog to the vet on Friday and sitting there watching the game on my phone and then listening to the overtime on the radio on the way home. John Weideman with a great call as always. Love hearing a overtime winner call from him. But catching most of that game, it was an exciting one to watch. It's one of those that, like you guys said earlier, they play up to their competition a lot of the time. I think it would have been easy for them to probably roll over and die a little bit there after the debacle on Wednesday. I think that shows a little bit of promise that you have a young team that's playing with a little bit of pride. I think that's kind of what you get from Luke Richardson too, that, you get embarrassed on Wednesday, you better show up ready to play on Friday and not lay down and die and not be a complete laughing stock. And they weren't, and that's a big win. Maybe that's a game that Toronto comes in, little Thanksgiving hangover, coming into Chicago, playing an early game on Friday. Maybe not, overlook what they view as a bad team. You got to take advantages of situations like that, and they did. And, you need guys to step up, and, Dickinson's your guy there. And, that's an exciting one.
If the Leafs miss out on their ideal spot, I still think they're going to make the playoffs. They're too good not to. They will look back on the season series against the Blackhawks and know that they went 0-2, kind of like granted it ended the Penguin season last year when they lost to us, but they're going to look back on that and that's going to be a thorn in their side. So I'm happy we can at least provide that because we ain't going to the playoffs. We all know that. But guys, since you were in attendance, there was back and forth throughout this overtime, Ron and Tony. William Nylander almost a golden opportunity too. It took both posts and the crossbar to keep this thing out, along with a little bit of deterrence from Arvid Soderblom. But then Kevin Korchinski at the other end able to win it with about like 29 seconds left, something like that on the clock. How was the reaction in the UC? Got to know.
Oh, insanity. Absolute insanity. I mean, when Tony says it, that place had not been rocking like that in quite some time. The building was energetic. It helped that it was a scrappy game too. And it's kind of fun because we talk so much, right, amongst ourselves at Four Feathers about the atmosphere, and you hear the players talk about the anthem and, that crowd energy that they really feed off of. This was a game, in my humble opinion, where that came to play because they put together in the, like 13 minutes left to go in that second period. They put together a really nice shift. And all of a sudden you started hearing everybody wake up. Everybody's coffee kicked in. Everybody was in present. You know, it wasn't just, oh, here we go again. Everybody was there. Everybody was ready to go. It didn't matter they were down 2 goals. They got one good shift. Crowd gets loud. They get another good shift. And it just kept going and going and going. And that overtime winner, the freaking roof popped off the building because I think I blacked out, to be entirely honest with you, in the moment. I'm still riding the high. That's where it started. And
blackout for Blackhawks Friday. I like it.
Always. And I mean, you know what was so appropriate, I think, about it too, because it was the Dickinson, Foligno, Anderson line that was their best line all night. Boris Kachuk was a menace. He was everywhere throughout that whole game, but it was the kids that got it done in overtime.
Yep.
It's Kurashev to Bedard to Korchinski for the winner. And I think that was the coolest part of it because it was a hard fought win. That's the type of win that these young guys, that as they're building this culture and they're building the next great Blackhawks team, this is a game that truly helps build that culture and teaches the young guys how to win against really difficult competition.
I think that photo of the celly with Korchinski jumping into the boards and Bedard greeting him will be a staple on Blackhawks promotional material for years to come. So, Tony, your take on it.
I mean, Ron's dead on with this. And you go back to that shift that was in the second period that Ron's talking about. Hawks had some really good puck control in Toronto's zone. And I just remembered that everybody's standing on their feet. They didn't even score on this shift. That's the loudest I've heard this team cheered for. After a good shift in a long time, there was fight. And you felt it from that moment. I don't know about you, Ron, but you could just, there's sometimes you're at a sporting event and you just, the hair on your arm starts to raise, feel a little goose. Like right there was sort of the moment that you knew this could be a special game that you're at. And this is obviously prior to the hat trick. And then you come in, you have the Dickinson hat trick. But as Ron said, the roof popping off the building, that's what it felt like. I can't even remember either. Started in the same position as Ron. That puck goes in. I don't even remember what happened after that. It was just, it felt like a playoff victory. And I know this team is far from that, but that was the type of atmosphere you had in there on Friday. Yeah, great attendance, a great game, everything on top of it. I think that was the first hat trick I've been at personally and seen in my life at the UC. But other than that, man, like everything Ron said is 100% true. If you were there, you felt that energy. It was the Madhouse on Madison on Friday.
Second greatest hat trick I've seen in my life. The first one being Patrick Kane's hat trick to send Vancouver home.
Yeah, that'll be hard to top. I like your about that shift in the second period and talk about that because you could tell. We talk about when the boys are buzzing, right? And that was a moment of it. And sure, their hockey game goes in waves, but that was when you knew you could go and line that up from both momentum, from the eye test, and from the numbers there. The Blackhawks all started progressing forward in their game at that particular juncture. So it's just cool when all that kind of stuff matches up and it's not just this is what I'm going with my gut, what I feel. It really was a turning point in the game, so to say. So obviously took the rest of it to get that effort done, but that's why we're here. That's why we're in person. That's why we're still showing up. Seeing number 98 there at the UC. Okay, guys, one last game. Best day ever, worst day ever. Sunday, these matinee 1:00 starts. It was great for Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. You can do all that. Ron and I discussed this last week, but my God, the early start. Ron, what did I say? I knew they were going to come out flat. And whether they down 2 goals, 5:30 into the game.
Yep,
they didn't have a chance. They didn't have a chance. Worst day ever. I don't need to go through any of the kids promotional bullshit. Slow start. Donato redirect, shoot breakaway on these. Tony, you were there as well. Does this feel as lifeless as it was? Besides the kids screaming in your ear while you're hungover?
I mean, I don't know if it was just sort of the hangover of Friday, but this was really like the equivalent of like trying to watch spring training baseball after your team won the World Series. Like that's what it felt like. It just felt like you wanted more out of it. There was not as many people, visible empty seats. Obviously there's football on. It's Sunday. It's 1:00. But to me, I'm sitting there thinking like the Bears aren't playing. We just came off of this overtime victory. Everybody's excited. Why are the stands not packed for Sunday. I get it. It's a travel day, holiday. I get the kid stuff as well, but it was lifeless. It took a while for there to be any sort of energy that came close to some of the lower points of energy you felt on Friday. And some of that was just flat out due to the effort on the ice. They got off to a slow start. I heard way too many Let's Go Blues chants in the UC for my liking.
Disgusting.
A lot of Blues fans up there. And as Ron kindly pointed out just a little bit ago, when they talk about feeding off of the crowd did the Blackhawks no favors on Sunday. Not saying we're the reason that they had a stinker, but there just was not that energy there. I don't know if it was the in-game promotion, the way that they ran it. I took a little exception to the full intro being done with additional lighting on within the arena. It did not set the tone for a Blackhawks victory by any stretch of the imagination, comparative to what I've seen, not only on Friday, but just other Hawks games this season, even Hawks games in the past. There was something off visibly within that arena on Sunday.
Yeah, Ron and I kind of discussed this on last episode. So we got to get Comiskey steak, Tony. I think you're in the same sort of boat as us. Thoughts on matinee starts when there doesn't need to be a matinee start. This being a 1 o'clock game with the promotion that they ran instead of one of those great 6 o'clock starts at the UC.
You know, I'm not going to lie. I love those matinee starts just as someone who typically goes to bed pretty early. But they hit a little different back when they were like NBC national television, 11 o'clock starts on a Sunday. And I always think back to like the Hawks playing the Capitals back when Ovechkin boarded Brian Campbell. That game always sticks out in my mind. It hits different when the team's good and you know they're actually going to come out and play. But when it's a Sunday matinee, Hawks Blues, and the Hawks are terrible, and you know, like you said, Tony, too many Blues fans in the house. No, that's not something I'm too interested in.
And it's self-imposed too. That's what I
right.
Get. NBC would request that game to come and be the, you know, when they would do that like 11:30 start or like whatever it was. They request that. Sure, it'd be ahead of time. But this is self-imposed. They're doing it to themselves. And you still got like 4 fucking more of these to go on weekends. And it could be a lively atmosphere at night. That's my problem with it.
Yeah, and I could see too, maybe on a holiday weekend, you're thinking people want something a little earlier on a Sunday, get themselves adjusted back to work in time. I don't know. That's at least how my brain works a little bit. But yeah, no, that is tough. You did see it in the crowd. It was, even on TV, it was visible, the amount of empty seats, especially in the lower bowl. And, you could say that the crowd wasn't in it. I mean, what chance did the crowd really have to get in it at some point too? You come out that flat. I mean, it's going to take the air out of the building right away anyways. But yeah, I mean, and the kids' day thing, I'm not a fan, but I'm not someone that has kids. You know, if I had kids, I'd probably feel a little bit differently about it. But it almost that type of thing feels gimmicky, and it doesn't seem like a thing that the Chicago Blackhawks should have to do. I think the tickets should normally be sold, but when you aren't playing good hockey and you haven't been for years, maybe that's the type of thing you have to resort to. I don't know. That feels like something that the fucking Cleveland Indians would do on a Sunday noon pitch. Let nine-year-olds announce the batting order. I even heard some kid was filling in for Gene Honda, announcing one of the goals. Did not fucking like that at all.
Did they make the little kid do the kettle 1 minute remaining in the first period? That's what I want to know.
They did not.
That
was
like the only thing they couldn't say. Yeah.
The only thing that they didn't do was announcing opposing goals and the kettle 1 minute. That was about it.
Yeah.
Everything else was
just an interesting setup. And I know.
And Gene Honda was not there all weekend, Patrick.
Yeah. Well,
that was also noticeable. I think he's got his like Maui Invitational that weekend or some shit like that. It's that'll take a little, for me, that takes my wind out when you don't hear Gene Honda and you hear the second string PA announcer in. Not a fan of that either. So like Johnny said, all those things, you wrap it all up. The kids, no Gene Honda. terrible fucking thing on the ice. The Blues fans, worst day ever by a long shot.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna market this as the best day ever, you might want to eliminate all that other bullshit within it.
Yeah, but at least win the game. That's if
Yeah, there you go.
You gotta win the game, man. You know what? Because the kids they'll probably make more fans for life then, right? If you win the game, so do themselves a favor and really get up for those. Maybe some extra smelling salts need to come in. Maybe they need to do them in the locker room before they come out, so the kids don't get a bad influence or whatever. But that's my take on it. You gotta win.
And
the game.
I'll say
here's the other one that I noticed as well, too, guys. The Hawks came out early from every intermission, like they were not synced up to the music on the ice when they introed. And I don't know what happened either over the last 2 days. It's been Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, when they come out on the ice pretty much all season.
Into four.
They cut Money for Nothing early on Friday, went into the Horsemen, and then they skipped it completely on Saturday.
Sunday,
or Sunday, and they were out on the ice before the intro video was even finished.
Interesting. Maybe there's a little timeline lapse there going on with some of the other stuff they had to do.
Sounds like a bunch of Sunday vacation days for the United Center staff. Maybe, you know, maybe the kids were running the fucking jukebox too.
All right. That about does it. Hawks went 1-2-1, or excuse me, 1-2 over the stretch here. Let's get into the juicy hot topics. Why we have our guy Comiskey on here. Corey Perry situation. What the hell is going on with Corey Perry? Everybody in not just Chicago Blackhawks land, in the NHL landscape wants to know, because this thing's gotten so blown out of proportion. We've got multiple different things going back and forth here. The guys, the thing that gets me is the conflicting messaging. First, it's an organizational decision to healthy scratch him. Okay, that's happened, right? Guys deal with certain stuff, whatever. It happens, but weird, kind of no explanation on it. And then Perry's agent has to come out and make a statement on it and says that Corey stepped away from the Blackhawks due to personal matters. So what happens is you get rumors flying around like you had on the interwebs today, saying all kinds of shit that may or may not be true, but it doesn't matter because these people are going to take their 15 seconds of fame to go and get it blasted out there. And guess what? It most certainly did, to the point where you got a Hawks beat reporter commenting on it, saying that it's 100% not true. What's your take on all this situation? What's going on? We're left in the dark here, but how do you feel about Corey Perry being away in these mysterious circumstances?
It gives such a weird vibe. It is really what it is, because, you know, I think the worst part about the whole thing is there's 100% a piece of Blackhawks fandom or even NHL fandom that immediately goes, oh, the Blackhawks having something sketchy going on. Oh, you know what I mean? It further impacts the already smear on the organization after the Kyle Beach situation. So why it's such a big secret is beyond me. If it really was just he's stepped away from the team because he has personal matters going on, so be it. Just announce it that way.
The team when it was actually personal matters for another player. Remember when Nikita Zaitsev had to miss like a weekend, and they put out a goddamn press release. You can go on the website and read it. It says Nikita Zaitsev will miss practice today and has been placed on non-roster due to personal reasons. Yeah. It's so official that they do that. Whereas this, they're handling it through the media. Kyle Davidson's got to come out when they get back on Thanksgiving Day. What the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Like it makes for such weird messaging to the fan base. And then again, if you're the Blackhawks in this situation, you can't get upset when all these fucking rumors start flying around, because you allowed it to happen, because you kept it so, you know, under the cover and trying to kind of hide whatever the reasoning is. And obviously none of us know what the actual reason is. And again, I certainly hope it's not the freaking rumors that have come out today, because that would not be great, Bob. But it gives such a weird messaging. And if it was as simple as personal matters, you just do that. Why is this some big, well-kept secret all of a sudden that Corey Perry's away from?
And if you can't play, then you can use a roster spot at least, because you can designate a non-roster for that, right?
Right. You can call somebody up from
You're already down the injuries that we haven't even talked about yet.
Yep. I agree.
That's my take on it. I'm looking at, sure, there was a situation bigger at play here, but fuck, Luke Richardson still got to field the team. He had to go 11 forward 7D on Wednesday night because of it. Granted, that was like the spur of the moment thing. It just happened right before, but still, now you're hampering yourself as this thing drags out. So, Comiskey, your take on it, since you're the biggest Corey Perry fan I know.
Yeah, well, going into this year, I would have loved to have seen that Corey Perry wasn't going to make it through the entire Blackhawks season. But this is a little strange, and I don't think it's great. I think we sit here and say, if it was this, why are they doing this? If it was that, if it's something so simple, I think the longer this goes on and the more they're coy about it, the more you have to start believing that something really fishy and really strange is going on. And I don't think that. It doesn't even seem like, it is a personal matter for Perry and they're just trying to take his best interest, because if that was the case, why wouldn't you just say that it's, personal reasons for him? Why was it a very last second scratch in Columbus that again causes you have to go, 11 forward, 7D? It doesn't seem like it was something that was out of nowhere, and it does seem like something that was out of nowhere and something's fishy going on. And then two, we say that Kyle Davidson has to come out on a holiday and address the media. Kyle Davidson didn't say a goddamn thing. Kyle Davidson went to the Rick Hahn School of Interviewing and didn't answer a single question, didn't say a single thing, just said a bunch of words, and you walk away from his interview saying, well, I have all the information that I had going into this, Kyle.
I think you got 2 words out of Kyle Davidson, and it was foreseeable future. That was the only level of update that you could do,
which is vague in and of itself.
Right.
It seems weird. And, and like you said, if you leave this much, and it's, we're coming up on a week now where we've gotten pretty much no update on this whatsoever, then you're going to get rumors like you got today. You're going to get the jokes that go along with it. Now, it's a strange situation. Some of the jokes on Twitter, I mean, read them. They're humorous. But, when you're an organization that had a Kyle Beach situation and stuff like that, you really can't afford. You don't get benefits of the doubt, and you don't want anything like that going on there, even if it's 110% fabricated, which, I mean, something like that seems far-fetched. I mean, you've had these rumors come out with the Blackhawks all the time.
You don't believe the secondhand source from a TSN employee? You don't believe that, really?
I mean, yeah, no.
But I mean, on the other hand, I also don't believe Charlie Remiliotis when he says it's 100% false.
And how does Charlie know that?
Yeah, right. I love Charlie. Great guy. I went to high school with him, but
oh yeah, we love Charlie. But now I'm going to message Charlie and be like, what the hell is going on?
I think it'd be wrong to go full board in on either side, right? Like,
right.
I'm not gonna go and spread the bullshit, but I'm also not going to take the Blackhawks' word for it completely 100%, right?
No, and it's strange, but and the Blackhawks say that they've changed, and they're up for transparency, and then they do something like this. I mean, this kind of dates back to the Patrick Sharp, Duncan Keith rumors all those years ago too, right, where no one ever found out what was going on with that. They didn't address it. Nothing happened. Those two got in a fight at practice. All this weird stuff. It just keeps coming full circle. At some point, you got to learn from the past and make adjustments and make this shit right. So who knows what it is? And until they say something, people are going to keep wildly speculating.
All right. A guy who is gravitated towards Corey Perry early on in the season. Got to know your take on all this, Tony.
It's just weird, man. And I think you guys have all given, excellent analysis to this. The one thing that I'm sort of, I guess, internally speculating myself here is there a legal reason why they cannot disclose what's happening? And that would be in from everything that I know, and I'm not a lawyer, don't claim to be, don't play one on TV either. There has to be something that is legally binding them from not sharing what this is, whether that's the health of a family member, legal proceedings, legal investigation, whatever it is. Because when I hear personal matter, when I hear foreseeable future, when I hear all these terms that are be thrown around and they won't comment on it, if they're allowed to let that, or if they're willing to let rumors that like today that are flying through social media without giving the fan, the beat reporter, everybody some sort of information just to quell the minds of everyone who's inquiring on this situation, that tells me that they are legally not able to speak about it. And maybe you don't want to go out there and say that because it opens up more speculation. Like what happened? We all just went through everything with the Bears.
Alan Williams, right?
Yes. with their defensive coordinator and everything that was going on. This has got to be something that is a legal. You are not talking about this. We are waiting for more information to come out. And who knows what that is. Again, that could be health related. That could be family related. It could be criminally related. You have no idea what he's involved in. And it might not even be him. He could just be tied up in something. We have no clue at this point what is happening here. And maybe you don't want to take that roster spot away if you're Kyle Davidson and designate him here just because you don't know if it's going to clear up next week or in 3 weeks because you just don't have that information in real time because you're dealing with everyone who's involved in the situation. That's where my head goes, at least at this point, is that, there's probably something going on that they can't talk about it. You brought up the, who was that last year where they had the full PR release. I would have expected something like that from the Blackhawks
just earlier this
organization.
season. Zaitsev. I think it was family matter.
Yeah. I would think if it was something like that, what really doesn't sit well with me is you have basically the same day. I think it was a day old footage, but Chris Foster's tweeting out, good guy Corey Perry as he's coming to meet kids off the ice at what was that, Fifth Third Arena, and Charlie was all over this one, and everybody's really taken to Corey Perry since he's come to the Blackhawks.
Dude, if you've watched any of those every shift ones, you're like thinking like, man, I thought this guy was like the biggest pest in the world. Just watch him on the ice, and then you're like, he's, just a normal dude and like a good like dad to his kid and all that stuff. If you go and watch that, you can see plenty of examples of it there. And
you've got him working with Bedard extra after practice the day before he's scratched. Like, none of this stuff makes any sense. I'm hoping that however this gets resolved is good for Hawks, for Perry, for all the fans, for everybody, and we get some closure to it. But up until now, how secretive they've been, even after their marketing campaign, is we're going to be so transparent. We're going to be uber transparent with all these things. I think organizationally, something here points to whatever this situation is, they're not allowed to talk about it versus wanting to be transparent with fans. That's what I've got. As far as the agent putting out a statement and conflicting statements that go back and forth, that's where I start to poke holes in all this and say, how is this really being handled behind the scenes? You have no idea. But that's where I'm at. Cause other than that, it does leave so much room for speculation that, it just leads to no good things. There's really no good outcome here.
Yeah.
If, any of these rumors that fly become true or anything else that's detrimental to the Blackhawks season.
Yeah, or Corey Perry himself too.
Corey Perry,
I don't know exactly what the hell's going on. So that's just what happens when there is this sort of confusion on this. All right, he's not the only absence among the forward group. A couple other notable ones, guys. Taylor Hall's out for the season. He had been in and out, as Tony mentioned earlier, but now officially, believe it was today, he was scheduled to have ACL surgery on his right knee. Andreas Athanasiou was also placed on injured reserve, retroactive to November 9th. That's like a week-to-week thing. So Cole Gutman, Joey Anderson recalled here. That's who you're dealing with Corey Perry, AA on the shelf, Taylor Hall done for the year here. Comiskey, it led you to a certain point. We got to talk about it. What's your grandiose take on this?
Yeah, I think, maybe the posting was a little more tongue-in-cheek than it was literal. However, it's
we got to talk about it, man. We got to air it out.
It's almost as if you look at this roster and you see glaring holes and a bunch of no names on the wings out there. It's almost as if there's a dynamic top line, top six winger up there that's available for the price of money and is a free agent and has all these ties to Chicago. And
talking about Phil Kessel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got good hot dogs in Chicago, so he could try them out here. But Patrick Kane's out there, and it's something that the Blackhawks have just been 100% against. And yes, they're rebuilding. When I put that tweet out, 90,000 people told me that they're rebuilding. It doesn't make sense. I'm aware that they're rebuilding, and I'm aware that Patrick Kane's not going to come in here and make them a playoff team. But at some point, too, I mean, you have to look at the situation at hand and reevaluate some things. Yeah, you brought Taylor Hall in here to provide, some depth and some actual scoring alongside Connor Bedard. Same thing with Anastasiou. If all these guys and Corey Perry to a certain degree too, to at least
He
be
was
a
up there on the
veteran.
point leaderboard before
Yeah.
being scratched. Yeah.
You have to, at some point, yes, you could be rebuilding, but you still have to have actual NHL caliber players out there, especially when your next core of players is actually on this roster during the rebuild. I mean, you have 4 of those guys that are going to be playing prominent roles in the next wave of the Blackhawks, and in Bedard and Reichel and Korchinski and Alex Vlasic and even, Kershev to a degree. They have to have guys around them, because if you look back to Patrick Kane's rookie year, you had Taze out there with him. Obviously, he was a rookie too, but, you had Patrick Sharp on that team. You had a bunch of guys, Robert Lang was out there. Marty Havlat was on that team.
Tuomo Ruutu, right?
Yeah, Patrick Sharp scored 36 goals that year. It wasn't like they came in and they were the only guys around there. You have to surround those guys. So now I understand their stance that maybe it didn't make sense to bring Kane in here. You want to build some new wave. You want to do all this. You want Bedard to walk in and be the guy. But now that Hall is gone and Anastasiou's hurt and Corey Perry is, in mystery land, maybe you reevaluate and maybe you look at this guy and because I fully agree, with Davidson that, maybe we're not in a position to add. Yes, I don't think you're in a position to add via trade, because you don't want to give up assets just to bring depth in to make this team, go from the bottom 5 in the league to bottom 10 in the league.
Yeah.
But you got to have guys around Bedard. And if you can get a guy like Patrick Kane just for money, I think it's something you have to at least reevaluate now and consider, because he has to have someone around him. He has to have someone that can skate with him. He has to have someone that can get him the puck. He has to have someone that can finish when he passes them the puck. Because if he's playing with scrubs, it's going to affect the way that he plays. He's going to start pressing more. He's going to start, trying to take over more, holding onto the puck too long, shooting the puck maybe when he should look to pass, or vice versa. You don't want that weighing on him. And I think it's at least something to think about, especially when you can see a guy like Patrick Kane. People say he wants to go to a contender. Okay, yeah, maybe, but he did seem like a guy that was very interested in spending his career with the Hawks, even if they weren't on the up and coming. He was building a house in the northern suburbs of Chicago. That doesn't sound like a guy that was getting ready to leave and go chase rings. So, I mean, if you went out there right now and offered him a higher AAV than anyone else that's chasing him, which shouldn't be that hard to do, because most of the teams that are chasing him don't have that much cap space anyways, and the Hawks have plenty of it. I think if you did that, he probably signs, at least in my opinion, unless he is full gone on doing this cup chasing thing. I think you have a real shot, and I think it's something you should consider now. Yeah. Does it make 100% sense? Maybe not, but you got to look at it, I think.
I just want to put these facts out there before we let Tony Ron chime in. The calculus has changed on all of this. Taylor Hall is supposed to be that guy riding alongside, right? Now it's gotten to the point where we're happy Philip Kershev's really doing his job and digging out pucks and stuff now that he's back after his wrist injury to start the year. So Bedard and Kershev, that works nicely. But now Lucas Reichel is kind of a little bit of a lame duck. So Connor Bedard and Philip Kershev got to pull him up, and they got to try and jumpstart him and elevate his game. So they're already taking on that responsibility without their veteran presence out here on this. And then what does that leave the rest of the lineup with? It's nothing against these depth forwards, but they're not of the same scoring caliber of the rest of them. Yep, Kyle Davidson comes out here and says we're not in a position where we're going to do this. So you know what? I really hope Cole Gutman and Joey Anderson really surprise me. But is that realistic, guys? Weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not realistic. And although I will say, to give them their flowers, I think Cole Gutman played a really good game on Friday specifically. I think in that defensive role.
I've seen a lot of good stuff from Cole Gutman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about the scoring dynamic.
Agreed.
Play with number one up there.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Like, Cole Gutman came in, that second line looked solid. He played really well defensively. He brought a lot good there, and that's great. Joey Anderson came in, played alongside Dickinson and Foligno. That line was the best line on the team for 65 minutes on Friday. Came in, did his job. But to that point, they have nobody that can keep up with Connor Bedard. There is a certain thing in hockey that not every player can play with a star. Look at the guys that have all played with Sidney Crosby. Look at all the guys that have played with Connor McDavid, right? you can't just throw Joe Blow on that line and expect it to work, right? It took, sometimes they're weird guys, but it took Chris Kunitz and Pascal Dupuis and Jake Gensel to play with Sidney Crosby. It's taken them paying $5.5 million a year for Zach Hyman to come in and play with Connor McDavid. It's the same principle applies. There are oftentimes you see Connor McDavid or Connor Bedard making plays for this Blackhawks team, and the guys that are on the other end receiving the puck aren't ready for it because they're not used to playing with that level of talent. And you need to get somebody in there. And to Comiskey's point, right? Maybe it's not Patrick Kane, but especially now that Taylor Hall is down, because that was their saving grace. It was Hall's going to be Robin to Bedard's Batman on that top line, and we're going to run it, and they're going to be the offense, and that is what it is. Well, now your surprise and Corey Perry from scoring is gone, as noted by my Mr. Comiskey. You're without Taylor Hall for the rest of the season. And Andreas Athanasiou has not been the same player, even when he is healthy and on the ice right now. They have nobody that is not named Philip Kurashev, which not a shot at Philip Kurashev, but to play with Connor Bedard. They have nobody that's up there that can keep up with a guy like him. And there is no better way for a skilled player to develop than playing with other skill. As Comiskey, you laid it out perfectly, right? Even those bad Blackhawks teams that Taves and Kane came into in their first rookie year still had at least some talent on the roster.
How were they help molded? It wasn't all just them being great.
No.
Sure, that takes a lot of it, but those early years are formative in a way, right?
Yes, 100%. And I think it's kind of tragic in a way too, because I think you're really starting to see the frustration of Connor Bedard more than ever, probably these last 3 games that we're highlighting tonight, where
sticks on the board.
He's getting really pissed off, and you almost are really starting to see him try and do too much sometimes because he feels like he has to provide all of the offense. And when teams are keying on him, like Tampa did in that home game about a week and a half ago, when teams are keying in on him, like the Leafs did a lot in that game on Friday night, he's not able to make as big of an impact because he has no support.
Yep. Tony takes on us.
You know, this is something that I sort of semi-joked about earlier when Taylor Hall went down for the first time with Ron, that they should bring Patrick Kane back. And, you know, obviously that's the number one thing that Blackhawks fans are going to go to. I mean, this is a guy that spent his career here winning Stanley
Cliche
Cup.
always the worst thing, though?
Well, go ask White Sox
charm?
Twitter for a second, Johnny. Go ask White Sox Twitter if you know if it's bad to be cliche and bring back guy. How often was Stan Bowman crucified
That's true.
for fucking bringing back guys? Like, how many times are we going to see Andrew Ladd?
Were they the greatest?
Kane is not Andrew Ladd, though. He's not. Yeah. There's one guy that's on the market right now that probably should be in a Chicago Blackhawks uniform. But this, to me, I go back to this. This is the organization washing anything that had an ounce of a tie to Stan Bowman organization. That this is it. This is the result that you have here. Was when the Kyle Beach stuff came out, in my opinion, they wanted to make sure from a marketing standpoint that nothing touched those cup teams. And from then on, they got themselves Connor Bedard in the draft. You hear it all the time. We don't deserve it. All that other stuff. They did a full facelift 180 on their marketing department, got rid of everybody, did all the right things by the book that they should have done, but they will not bring Patrick Kane back in here solely for the purpose, in my opinion, of fans potentially linking this new era of Blackhawks hockey with the previous one. They wanted a cutoff period. They wanted to separate these ties, because I think back to what Comiskey was just saying a few minutes ago. Patrick Kane building a house in the Chicagoland area, the comments that he made prior to the rebuild. And Johnny, we have these on our website, on tapsportsnet.com. Patrick Kane wants to stick around and see this thing through. There was an organizational
March
decision.
2022.
Organizational decision was made that they were going to open up a new chapter of Blackhawks hockey. And to their credit, they've done that. They've done everything that they can to distance themselves from one goal, the cup era, everything to change all this over. But as Ron had just pointed out, there's real frustration when it comes to watching Connor Bedard play hockey and actually have guys around that can skate with him. That is his development. This is his development right now. He's not getting the benefit of going down to the AHL, playing with guys that are, his age. You have to groom him to be a star. And if he's going to be frustrated, if he's going to be double teamed every time he enters the zone, he's got no one to pass to that can take a pass and actually shoot it and put the puck in the net, we're going to have problems. It's infuriating as a fan to have to watch that. But on the back end of all of this, Johnny, you pointed out the calculus has changed. I think it should be something that they're at least talking about internally. I hope they're not too bogged down in everything with Corey Perry right now and other, how do you replace Athanasiou and his, scoring or whatever. There needs to be a real, who is taking Connor Bedard under his wing. It cannot be all on Nick Foligno. Yeah. He's got to protect everybody else that's on the ice at this point.
He's got to play third line too. He's got to, there's other roles that Nick Foligno needs to fulfill, and it can't just be on Connor Bedard here. So I think Skokes makes a good point here in the comments here. He says, definitely interested in taking on a bad contract for a decent player at the deadline, weaponize that top cap space. I think that's a route that they could go, but as for the time being, Kyle Davidson says we're not in that situation where we're going to, other teams that have these kinds of injuries, absences, what have you, would go out and do that. But he basically just flat out said that they're not, in that position right now, which
I've got a question for you, Johnny, with that, because I wanted to bring up.
Disagree with it, but I know.
Is Davidson riding the tank though again this year? Because
that's a good point. I probably.
Is he just going to ride the tank out?
You're going to be bad anyway.
Look
how it turned out for us last year.
Right. Here's the next question.
Celebrini Bedard. That's what they're waiting for, right?
the follow-up to that is you guys brought up some really good points about who played with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews when they came up. Is this the same bad organizational development stuff that we saw with the White Sox, with Hahn and Chris Getz and all of that clusterfuck we saw with the last rebuild? Because if we're going to be brutally honest with the Blackhawks right now, Kyle Davidson's done a really great teardown. What's the next step to that? And yes, we're looking 3 to 4 years down the road, but do we want to be a perpetual rebuild tank team? When do you start making those moves? And when do you actually start to hold Kyle Davidson accountable for being able to say, we're not in the position to even take on a bad contract, or we're not going to go out and get the best talent available right now? Well, that to me was the clear white flag on the season with those comments.
Right. That's a good point. I do think that there is at least some history of a willingness to take on some money, though, as long as there's capital as well coming back with that. Jason Dickinson, guy who just scored the hat trick on Friday. Vancouver needed to dump that contract, and he said, we got you. We sent Riley Stillman because we had an overload on defenseman there. We got a pretty sweet pick along with Jason Dickinson at his current contract, but obviously plenty of room to take that on. So I do think there is some precedence there, but it's not of the massive caliber in terms of star player that you're talking about. So it'll be interesting to see, Tony. I don't know. Maybe trade deadline brings about a different situation on that front. But Comiskey, I got to go back to you on this because you put this take out there. And of course, it's holiday weekend in the evening hours. The people are getting a little riled up. It's natural. You ruffled some feathers in the comments. You got the actually crowd out. Tell us a little bit about it. And I'm sorry, it just blows my mind. You get the same kind of insufferables that the same kind of nonsense.
It's remarkable. I mean, before I sent that tweet out and everyone was so nice to inform me, the Blackhawks were actually not going to win anything this year. So what was Patrick Kane going to save? I mean, you know what? I hadn't thought about that before I tweeted it. So I am glad that everyone could enlighten me on that and let me know that he wouldn't be helping them, hoist, their 4th Stanley Cup since 2010. I hadn't considered that. But yeah, everyone else was, everyone's just in this race to prove other people wrong and tell them they're stupid. I mean, you know what? I am, I at least try to bat 300. So it means I'm going to say about 7 out of 10 stupid things. So if everyone wants to let me know, I'm game for that. A lot of actually motherfuckers in those comments. So that I was glad for. It's always nice to read through those.
Thankful to be reminded of that, Comiskey.
Yeah,
It
a lot. Yeah, and a lot of people making enlightening realizations on my behalf in those comments. So I'm thankful for that. But going back to it, I do have just one more quick thing to add to just in things that I think we consider on this, and maybe the Blackhawks shouldn't consider it. But Tony, you say too, the Blackhawks are considering the PR aspect, trying to wipe their hands clean of anything that happened with the Kyle Beach scandal. And since Patrick Kane was there, he's part of that. I think too, if you're looking at negative PR as well, you look at the reports coming out today, really starting to link Patrick Kane to the Detroit Red Wings again. You are going to start getting yourself back into the dollar bill type of public relations that the Blackhawks had for the longest time. You're looking square down the barrel of a game coming up is it February or March, where you're going to put Chris Chelios's jersey in the rafters and retire his number, a guy that you let walk to the Detroit Red Wings, who went on and had a significant career there and will probably, more so than being known as a Blackhawk, kind of be known as a Red Wing because he won championships there. You are looking square down the barrel of, on that night when they still just decided to retire his jersey on Detroit Red Wing night because, Chelios hasn't gotten booed for that enough in his time with the Blackhawks, of Patrick Kane returning to the United Center for the first time ever in a Detroit Red Wings jersey. I mean, you can't write it up any worse than that. You really can't.
What a way to spend my birthday weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
We were talking about Sunday being the worst day ever. That's going to be the worst day ever.
Yeah, very well could be, guys. I know these are optics and it's a one night thing there, but the footage is going to last forever on that. The feeling's going to last a lot longer than just the 45-minute ceremony and the 3 hours of the game, right?
To me, Kane's going to have to come out for that ceremony in his pads. He can't put that fucking jersey on. I mean, he might just have to wear like a ref jersey for that game because that's going to be absolutely terrible.
That's how much they're willing, in my opinion, to separate themselves from that they don't care. That the common fan is going to absolutely fucking vomit all over their Indian head sweater when that happens.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up. Yeah, let's wrap up Kane here. Predictions on where he'll actually sign. I'll go first. Panthers.
Red Wings.
I will also go with the Red Wings. I think he's got that DeBrincat connection. I think he wants to stay closer to Chicago. Like you said, he has that house there. I'm thinking Detroit.
I'm going to also have to unfortunately go with Detroit.
All right. I just had to save a little bit of hope here for us guys.
We appreciate your work there, Johnny.
Yeah.
I know that's been coming out, and I've heard that, but I'll also say we had talked about believing one side and one of the other. It's only been John Dietz. I'm sorry, it's only John Dietz. He's the only one that's been hammering this home just because he wants to be right about a take. So that's my take on it. All right, we'll see.
Do you have an updated power rankings of Blackhawks
beat reporters? Yeah, we're gonna have to get on that. All right, guys, the Bears are kicking off, so we're gonna get on out of here. Let's go stick taps real quick. Mine's to the post and the crossbar for Friday, saving that in overtime. And Galanis, that's sweet. Didn't know he was playing Salt Shed. Glad he stopped by a DJ at the UC for a little bit. Stick taps.
Yeah, stick taps quickly to the Hawks sweeping the Leafs this season. That's really cool and really fucking tough. Speaking of, though, gentlemen, on the topic of our TV or our entire show today of ruffling feathers, I would like to make ruffle one set. Well, not one set of feathers. It's going to ruffle a lot of fucking feathers here, and it really pissed me the fuck off on Friday. It is not "Let's go Blackhawks." Get that shit the fuck out of here. I hate that. It drove me mad. It drove me so mad to the point where I started chanting back, saying, "That's not the chant, you stupid fucks. It's Let's go Hawks."
Detroit
Get that
sucks.
shit out of here.
Don't know where there was not one proper chant. I'm surprised that this has made it this long in the episode.
Atrocious.
That was I started to lose my mind there for a second because I've never heard that in the UC before.
No.
The best day ever had the right chant. That's it. It's got one tally.
Good.
One tally.
At least they did something right in that snoozer of a fucking game. Because I heard that on Friday and I almost blew a gasket. It drove me nuts. I get it that the front office and the ownership wants to dissociate with what the Blackhawks used to be, but at least get the fucking chant right. Because if I let's go Blackhawks one more time, I'm throwing a set of chili cheese fries at a fucking small kid.
You also need to be able to intermix them with Detroit sucks. If you're really truly and passionate about this team, you should know that. All right. That little ruffle feathers and stick taps all in the same one. All right. I guess final thoughts. Then let's wrap it up. Comiskey, Tony.
Yeah, no, final thoughts. Me, I'm going back to Kane. Just Patrick Kane, if you still love us, don't put that jersey on. Sign with literally anyone else. I hear, you know what? Go try that warm weather out. You know, you've been playing in cold weather city your entire career. Go down to Florida. Fuck Detroit. Don't do it. Don't make us have to question whether we're going to boo you or not. I personally never would, but some will. Don't do it. Stay the fuck out of Detroit. It's a shithole anyways.
Florida's still closer to cup contention than Detroit is. I'll tell you that.
I love the pleads, Comiskey. Final stick tap or final thoughts, everything. Stick taps to Pat Comiskey for coming on these airwaves and making the Four Feathers family full barn complete here tonight. It was a pleasure to be back on the microphone with you guys. Let's try and win 2 fucking games in a row. Like that would be really fun to celebrate. I want to get high on the Hawks again. I want to have some fun. We've got a lot of games coming up. Finally, that scheduling stuff that we've had to deal with up until basically this point is now over. We get so much more Blackhawks hockey, which means that we have more things to talk about on the show. And for that, I am thankful. That's all I've got, guys.
Yeah, I'm thankful as well. I'm glad we got the full barn in, like you said, Comiskey. Thanks for coming on. Quick look at what's on tap next. It's Tuesday versus Seattle, 7:30. That's NBC Sports Chicago Plus. And then, hey, who we were just talking about? Detroit. Hawks will be there on Thursday, 6:00 puck drop on the regular NBC Sports Chicago channel.
Is Patrick Kane playing in that game against the Blackhawks because he signs tomorrow in Detroit?
Nope.
Shut up, Ron.
Not I love these time frames that we get to. Oh, it could be in the next 24 to 48 hours. Well, that doesn't happen. Then it's within the next week.
They said 28. They said 28, or they said 24 to 48 hours like 3 weeks ago.
Well, you know what? It'll be in the foreseeable future, Johnny.
That's where we're at. We'll be coming back at you in the near foreseeable future. Expect more from us towards the end of this week. But in the meantime, got those 2 to chew on here and all of this episode. So as always, go to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Follow us on socials at ontapsportsnet and at Four Feathers Pod. Subscribe to OnTap Sportsnet on YouTube because that's where you can drop your comments and find all of our episodes in the live section there. We appreciate anyone who comes in and jumps in those comments. Love hearing your takes on that. All right. Until next time, guys. Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks, baby.